meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. All council members are present. We had an agenda that was presented in your packet. Is there any changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Motion by Dave. Is there a second? Second. Second by Warren. Any discussion? Call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We also have our minutes from our April 2nd meeting. Is there any corrections or changes to the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Dave to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Keith. Any discussion? Call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. This time is our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Lots of green or red jackets out there. Anybody wish to address the council? None? All right. We have no public hearings. We have several reports and presentations. Brian Fredericks won't be here to do our police department monthly report, but I'll go through it for him. I won't go through the ICRs as Brian typically does, but for a total for the month, we had 258 verbal warnings, 292 ICRs for a total of 550 calls. And you can visit with him if you have questions specifically related to those calls for the month. Moving on to the March. You can see how it compares to the years prior. Again, for the year, 550 calls for the month of March, 480 for the year prior, and 557. So we're in line for the last 6 years, pretty much average. Moving on then to the March report, that's the last 12 months. And again, you can see May, obviously, of 2013 being the highest, but March of 2014 is very much in line and average at 550 calls. Vicki, do you have anything else to add to Brian's report since he's not here? No? All right. Anybody have any questions? If you do, please give Brian a call or stop in and visit with him. Okay, we'll move in then to the ambulance department quarterly report. Tim? I believe you have a handout for that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to give you the first quarter ambulance report for 2014. In January, we had 68 total calls. In February, 52. In March, we had 57, which totaled 177 total ambulance calls, which was up 25 from 2013. And as you recall, 2013 was one of our actually record year. We had 32 canceled or no load calls, which means we did not bring a patient to a facility. I did list on the left of your handout the reasons for the no load. You can see that crash no loads top the list, which is not uncommon for this time of year. A lot of crashes on the streets and highways, and we check out the patient, make sure they're not injured, and most of the time then they will refuse to go in. In the center of that, I did list all of the facilities that we transported this quarter. Of course, it should be Centricare Sauk Center Hospital tops the list, and then St. Cloud Hospital is second on the list. We billed out a total of $155,218.70 worth of billing. Then on the last, I did break out the rig usage. As we always have this discussion, we try to use all the rigs in a specific manner to save the mileage. And then I also included the mileage of each rig on the report. Any questions for me?
Do you receive a consent on the no loads when you are at a crash or at a scene and they refuse service? Is that a common practice? You get that from everybody?
Yeah,
What's the normal process?
we try to make contact with everybody on scene to make sure that they're not injured, they don't want to go to the hospital. We also have that time to evaluate them to make sure they're of sound mind to make that decision.
So there's not a physical thing they sign off on that says they refuse service?
Yes.
There is, right?
Yeah, we request them. We, of course, can't force them to sign off, but we do request them to sign off. Kind of takes liability off of us.
Okay.
Out of the 155,000 that you bill, what's your expectation of collection?
Well, as you know on the yearly report, I would say that roughly 30 to 35% will be write-offs for various reasons. Besides the write-offs, we have probably, I think it's about 85 to 90% collection rate after that. So I would have to do the math on that.
So you write 35% of it off, and then you expect to collect 80% of the remaining?
Yep.
So what about, 20%, I don't know, math was never my strong point here, so.
Let me back. I think what you were saying is you will write off 30% of the total billed out approximately, correct? And then of that 30% you write off, do you submit that to collections, or is that a write-off from the legislative?
No, that's legislative write-off, Medicare, Medicaid.
So the remaining 75% that you, or 70% that you're collecting, there's a portion of that actually may not be paid and may be submitted to collections.
Correct. Either collections or revenue recapture.
So in about 90% of that remaining 70% is what you say you collect.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
So, let me ask it again. Of that 155,000, how much do you plan to, will you expect to collect?
About 100. About 100.
Yeah,
About
take
100?
a guess, about 100,000, yeah.
So 2/3 of it?
About that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Tim? Oh, no? All right, thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Moving on.
2014, and they have several items which I bullet pointed on your razor. They're looking at putting a float in the Sinclair Lewis Day Parade, and that wouldn't be a fundraiser, that would just be more community outreach. They're looking at the capabilities and the legalities for accepting online donations. They're formulating donation categories or levels of donations that people can give. They are right now reviewing a proposed agreement for naming rights, and they have reviewed the
To be part of it, or two, do we want to step back and?
that any of you are invited to come if you have specific questions for them.
Do you send us out a notice of the next meeting, or do you know when that is?
I don't have the date of it right now, but when I have that, I can send it out to you.
Do they know about how much they're planning on raising?
And how much they're planning on raising? They have a couple different levels of goals. They would, right now, their
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
A fair chunk of the funding for.
Best case scenario, what's best case we've got at this time, right? So I think, as you can see from the items that we discussed already earlier tonight, that we have a solution to, hopefully, with CentraCare to take that to another level to get it addressed locally at the hospital. But that being said, in front of us here is the fee schedule amendment based on a recommendation from staff that we move a transport fee of $250 as presented. No discussions or motion to approve the resolution 2014-20 amending the fee schedule by adding an air ambulance transport fee of $250.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this would be a permanent, even when and if there is a new helipad?
It would be the set fee schedule until we were to change that fee or remove it entirely, correct?
correct, and if it's no longer necessary at the time we amend the fee schedule again, it can be dropped off.
Okay.
But
It's
for-
not unreasonable to assume it's permanent, though, because
Right.
if we're ever transporting by fixed wing, it'll be back to the airport.
Yeah.
So,
Very true. Any other comments?
And this fee is something that'll get added on to the normal charge for ambulance?
Right, this would just be added right into our fee schedule,
Okay.
which we adopt by resolution in the beginning of every year.
Right.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. No other questions? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, and against. Okay, moving on to action 7E, approve resolution 2014-21, approving proposal to complete Hickman Drive project. Vicki?
In 2013, the Public Works approached the Operations Committee regarding the needed repairs to the gravel portion of Hickman Drive and Center Street. And the committee at that time directed firm quotations be solicited for the work to be done on Hickman, but that Center Street would be put on hold pending a potential petition, which we now have received. But the scope of the Hickman Drive project would include reshaping the ditches from the end of the existing asphalt on Hickman to the top of the hill, and that's about 900 feet. All gravel that is eroded into the ditch would be reclaimed to the road bed. Then the entire length of the road, which is about 1,500 feet, would be reshaped, and then with the addition of 4 inches of compacted Class 5, the ditches that were reclaimed would receive black dirt, seed, and mulch. And addition upon completion, the entire length of the new Class 5 then would receive a magnesium or calcium chloride liquid treatment, which would then slow future erosion that's caused by dust and rain. And in addition, that really limits the amount of grading that we would have to do. So there's quite a bit of savings in staff time. We had 3 quotes that were obtained for the work. Sherman Excavating at $16,906, Central Specialties at $36,180, and MBC Drainage at $29,400. The project, because we initially started working on this in 2013, we had planned to use residual project dollars remaining from the 2013 mill and overlay, and that was where we asphalted Prospect High and Center, where we spent $81,500 of that $100,000 budget. We have that resolution put before you. The Operation Committee was recommending that we proceed with it and approve Resolution 2014-21, accepting that quote and authorizing the repairs to Hickman, which would award it to Sherman Excavating for $16,906.
Any questions?
After we do these improvements, are we planning that maintenance is going to be a lot less?
The maintenance on a road that then has been gravelled and chlorided, generally you very rarely have to revisit that site for grading for the whole summer.
Okay.
So if they properly put it down, grade it, pack it, and chloride it, and has its opportunity to soak in, it will stay in place.
Are we going to have the engineer supervising that or making sure that it's properly compacted and put in place, or is that going to be an extra cost?
We could have the engineer come in and look at it, or we can have our own staff go out there and take tests and make sure that the proper thickness is there after compaction.
Okay.
Also, then, are we going to verify what type of calcium chloride treatment is done? I know there's some new treatments being done. The county has had 2 things I know they're doing testing this year for different type of treatments.
They are doing, a lot of them are going with magnesium over calcium. On the size of that project, it's a difference of $70, so it's not a lot of difference in cost. I have talked to actually Todd County, which does a lot more treatment on their township and county roads than Stearns County does, and they were sending me the specs of their new treatments. Our best bet is to get in on a bid when a company is in the area doing some township roads, and then we just kind of get residual and we get it done for a lot less. So that's why we were in contact with them, so that when they're hauling for them, we get it done at the same time. And so it may be beneficial us to use whatever treatment they happen to be using at the time. But we will be back to the council before that's done with maybe an option of A, B, or C.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
The main reason why they're looking at this is just to decrease the maintenance on them until our 5-year plan, because in 5 years we're planning on getting rid of all the gravel roads in the city limits, I think.
We would like to remove all the gravel roads. The one that's different about this particular section is that the infrastructure is not underneath it yet. And so if we do cap it with the Class 5 and chloride it, you can save that road for a number of years without having to do a lot of work to it.
Okay.
It would be nice to tar it, but then you may get a black eye down the road when we take that back up to put infrastructure in there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2014-21, accepting the quote and authorizing repairs to Hickman Drive to Sherman Excavating for $16,906?
So move.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor. None against. You voted, right?
Yeah.
Moving on to F, approve soliciting of quotes for lower level flooring.
Hey, again, in 2013, the Operation Committee was kind of wrapping up some things we were starting last fall. They discussed the need for the repair or the replacement of the lower level common area flooring here at City Hall, where the tile is loose and chipped. We've got some tripping issues, and there has been some slips and falls on when it gets water on it. So we looked at the option of repair. We considered that, which would entail replacing the broken and chipped pieces and doing some re-gluing. And we also have an area where the floor is a little buckled at the seam that we'd have to maybe grind that off. They looked at that option. They looked at the option of replacing the entire tile with new ceramic tile, like is up on the walk-in level. With some preliminary estimates that was the most costly approach. And then they looked at the option of high-density commercial carpeting, similar to what we installed at the library. It's what's at the hospital, and it's a lot of commercial or office buildings like the administration office at the county, which was the preferred option of the committee. Hiller Carpeting, who has the state bid, they're the ones that provided a preliminary estimate and some carpet samples, which you've seen laying out here on the floor. And so the committee is suggesting we get additional quotes to be obtained for similar grade carpeting, which would give the local vendors then the opportunity to do the work. However, we didn't want to go ahead and obtain those quotes without first knowing, is the council comfortable with, or would they be okay with going into carpeting or having a carpet in that area? I've had comments either way. I mean, I think there's, it's very white out there, so, the color of carpet probably wouldn't be an issue, and it could do noise dampening, but then there's the issue is what is the long-term maintenance, and we talked about traffic patterns and those types of things. So I'm here in front of the council tonight to say, should we proceed with getting some quotes of carpet? I don't want to go out and get the quotes for carpet if we really don't feel like carpet is the best option out there. And so I guess that's really why I'm in front of you tonight.
Vicki, did you get a chance to get actually quotes on tile? I mean, I realize it's the most expensive route, but do we know, based on the size and the amount of tile needed, have we actually gotten a quote on that as well?
Well, what we looked at was we just recently had some tile work done at the airport, at the AD building, and then we had some tile work done at the library, I think it was last year, downstairs with the ceramic grade tile. So we kind of looked at the square footage and we just figured into that based on our new square footage compared to that. And it was quite a bit more than what these preliminary estimates were on the commercial carpet. So we kind of discounted that. The committee, I guess along with the committee and staff, we kind of discounted that idea simply because of the extra cost.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? I know the folks that are on the committee, may have some additional comments, but I think from what it appears that you have samples out there of carpets, and I know there's an issue that would reduce some noise. One of my concerns, obviously, is maintenance and the long-term care of that carpet, like anything with carpet and dirt, and we have a lot of traffic coming in and out of here. However, based on the cost and your preliminary, I think it sounds like the due diligence has been done.
Well, and these are the commercial square ones, so you can replace a section, not necessarily the whole thing if you have a strip that's worn or something happens.
Very good point. Any other comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to direct staff to seek quotes to be obtained for carpeting in the lower level common area at City Hall as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor. Against. Okay, moving on to G. Approved Resolution 2014-22, accepting proposal to purchase radios for Public Works Department. Vicki.
In the Public Works Department switched from two-way radio communication to cell phones in 2007. The existing radios at that time had exhausted their life. They needed replacement. However, the council decided not to do it at that time due to the upcoming digital technology that would render those new radios obsolete in a short period of time. The cell phones had push-to-talk capabilities, which we've used, but we do find that the time lag from the time you need to use them till the person hears you, it hasn't been as most efficient as we thought it might be. Those cell phones are up for replacement and renewal along with the service plan, and with the change in technology and the time lag issue and the monthly service fees that go with it, we again researched the possibility of going back to the two-way radio communication. We did receive quotes from Granite Electronics and Brandon Communications, which included 7 radios and a repeater station. Granite proposed Motorola radios and Brandon proposed Kenwood radios. We have the firm of Brandon quote was $5,240. Granite Electronics had quoted $7,658, but today they came back and amended their quote to $6,558. They had I don't know if they looked at the packet and found out that they were overbid or what, but they came back with a new proposal. If approved, the 5 cell phones would be removed from the service, which would be about $1,500 annual service fee. The life of the radios is 10 years, so over those 10 years, we would save $15,000 of service fees from the phones. And I do have some additional information on the repeaters and on the radios themselves, if anybody has any questions. We did have each set of radios for about a week so we could make sure we go out to the airport or we're in the building, we're in the shop, et cetera, how well they worked. And they felt that either radio would actually do the job for what they needed it to do.
The repeater would be located where?
The current repeater is on the arena.
And does that have generator backup?
I don't know. No, we don't have a generator at the arena. There's a battery backup on it. There's a,
Well, a UPS would be one, but I mean, to some extent, I think it would be something to look at to, one of the downsides I see of a phone is if something happens to a power grid or something happens to the commercial tower, we would be without communication. And I like the idea of having the radios and of us controlling that communication capability. And since we do have areas with generators, that it would seem to me to be appropriate to locate it on that. So, I mean,
I think at one time there was a repeater and the antenna right here on City Hall, which does have a generator. Might be something to consider.
Right.
Looking at that repeater being.
Right. It doesn't have, it just where the current one is from previous is there on the arena. That we also have a repeater on the roof of the police department outside where my office sits, and we could put the same thing there. Why it was placed originally up there, I don't know.
Right.
It's just where
I'm
the
not
existing
dictating
one
where
is.
it should go. I'm just saying that it would seem that'd be a good idea to have it connected to some emergency power, but I like the idea of the radios.
And they will communicate between each other without the repeater. It's just that it's not as clear and as distance. So.
I do have just a few comments in regards to the radios. Probably because, one, I am very much involved with Brandon Communications, so I will be abstaining from any vote. But secondly, I did some research because I thought it was important for folks to understand Kenwood versus Motorola and what's going on within that industry. One thing is Kenwood just recently bought E.F. Johnson, and all of us know that E.F. Johnson has been in the radio business for many, many years. So the radios that you're looking at here are digital radios, no question about it. The Kenwood does have one analog functionality in it, which will allow cities that aren't fully digital capable to have an analog channel as well as digital channels. So that's one thing within the radio that's being presented. The other thing is Todd County uses this exact same technology across all of their radios. That's not the 800 megahertz. That's a whole different, that's called P25. It's a whole different technology than what this is. So it's good to know that this is, these radios have been out there, these being the Kenwood ones. And Motorola, as we know, we use Motorola's for years as well. They're all a good radio. Polk County, Glenwood Fire, Sedan Fire, Villard Fire, Starbuck Fire, Lowry Fire, all of Otter Tail County, up to 17 fire departments, as well as Wadena, which is 5 fire departments, are using now Kenwood E.F. Johnson radios. So it isn't a new thing. I wanted to just make that point because I know some people are questioning about, well, we're now Motorola or should we be Kenwood? Kenwood has been growing and has actually acquired E.F. Johnson, which we always thought the opposite would happen because of the size, but that ain't what's going on. So the Kenwood world is really growing. We've done side-by-side trials for the past several years, these exact radios that's quoted here, and as you can tell by the cities and communities I just gave you, those are all side-by-side trials that went to the Kenwood E.F. Johnson radios. So very interesting point. Dan McCoy from Grand Electronics, a wonderful guy. We do a lot of radio business with him today. So again, that's another option, but I wanted to share some of that with you guys. Brandon Communications has been in the radio business for about 40 years, owned by Gardenville Telephone, who's been in it for 75 years, so it's nothing new to them as well. So, with that, I'm going to open it to the council for discussion. And what's the wishes of the council? Anybody have any more thoughts?
We're talking 5 radios?
7.
7 radios?
So the ability of these radios, they're digital, they'll be tuned to one frequency. How's that going to work?
The digital format is actually a band.
No, I understand that, but I mean, but the radio itself will have how many channels on its capability? Quite a few?
Quite a few.
Okay. And this is not the 800 megahertz that you're talking about?
It is not an 800 megahertz radio. It is not.
Okay.
No, and 800 megahertz digital radio is called the P25 technology. This is called Next Edge digital technology. 2 separate types of technology. And even if we went with the Motorola quote here, this Motorola quote will not work with the 800 megahertz radio as well.
And
Just 2 different.
that's reserved for emergency services,
Yeah.
800 megahertz.
Correct, as well as the fact that they're different technologies. This
Right.
digital radio you're looking at here is not the same type of radio that 800 megahertz is using today. It's different technology. Any
Okay,
comments?
so we're going to keep 2 cell phones in service? That's where I got
Dave and Tom will
confused.
still have cell phones.
Okay.
The 2 supervisors in the Public Works Department will have cell phones, and then, but they'll also carry the radio.
Okay, that's where I got the 5 from, is I'm looking at, okay, we're removing 5 cell phones, but we're bringing in 7 radios, so
Right.
I wasn't sure how that was. Okay.
Any more comments? It's the wishes of the council. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution 2014-22.
Second.
We have a motion to approve Resolution 2014-22, accepting proposal to purchase radios for Public Works Department from Dave.
Brandon is what's in the
Brandon
resolution.
All right. Brandon Communications for $5,240. A motion by Dave and seconded by Mike. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Aye. Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. Moving on to H, approve resolution 2014-23, accepting proposal to purchase vehicle.
Okay. The Public Utility Commission took a 1988 Dodge pickup out of service in 1999 as part of their replacement program, and the city has been using it since that time until recently when it was taken out of service here due to transmission issues. The vehicle is scheduled for replacement in 2014, and we did budget $25,000 for the replacement. The difference between the budget and actual could be made up within the department's budgets, and in addition, the sale of the box from the truck and the sale of the old Dodge could also bridge that gap. So you'll see that the costs that the estimates that we received for replacement are a little higher than the $25,000 that we had budgeted. The proposed use of the vehicle would be to transfer the dump body or the hoist from the Dodge to the new pickup, which would then be used, and this is the truck that they use for hauling tar, cleaning catch basins, that type of thing. After reviewing the vehicles on the state bid that met the city specifications, we also obtained quotes from local dealers. So they bid they have a government purchasing program. The state bid holders are Nelson Auto for Dodge, Midway Ford for Ford, and Thrain Hawkins for Chevrolet. And so we did get a Dodge estimate, a Ford estimate, and a Chevrolet estimate. And on both estimates, we had the state bid estimate and then also from our local dealer. The couple of things to note, the 2015 Chevrolet 2500 is from Dan Welly. It's actually on his lot right now, and it was traded into his lot, or transferred into his lot from another dealership. The 2014 Chevrolet from Dan Welly is also on another lot for sale that he could say he'd transfer within a week. The 2015 from Thrain would be ordered. It would take 6 to 8 weeks. So that's the scoop on the Chevrolets. The Dodge would have to be ordered from either the state bid or the local dealer, as well as the Ford from the local dealer or the state. So if you wanted an immediate vehicle, we would be talking the Chevrolets. Otherwise, we're talking 6 to 8 weeks out for delivery is what we could expect. All the quotes that are all the costs quoted are to the dealer lot. So whether the dealer lot is in the cities or the dealer lot is here in Sauk Center, that is the price to get it to that dealer's lot. And for your information, the last time we purchased a pickup, the council elected to pay $500 more in order to purchase locally. And the vehicles are very similar specifications between all three of the vehicles. A couple of things to note is the 2015 Chevrolet from Welly, the one that's already on the lot, does have a brake controller, which is a couple $100 or $193 or something more than maybe the other vehicle had. But opposite that, it doesn't have the all-terrain tires that the Ford has, so they kind of wash each other out. And Dave is here if you have any questions. He's kind of the one that saw the vehicles, helped go through the state bid, and to talk to the dealers and to get their information. And so what the question the council needs to decide is, do we want to go with the 2014, or is maybe a 2015 a better option because we're in that current model year? The other option is, purchasing locally versus purchasing on the state bid. You have a couple $100s of difference there. And as you can see, the prices range all the way from $25,003 for the 2014 Dodge Ram from Nelson Auto to $28,000 for the 2015 at Dan Welly, and that's the one that's sitting on the lot right now. So there's your choices.
All right. I know the committee spent some time reviewing vehicles, and I think I've had a chance to visit with Vicki as well in regards to this. She's noted our last purchase was from John Weiss Ford, which we did pay a small bit more, approximately $500 to do it local. Personally, I think doing it local is extremely important, and I would certainly ask council to consider that. My other thought would be if we're going to go to 2014 or 15, I'm trying to narrow down our choices here a little bit. If we choose to go to 2015s, then obviously we know the Rams or the Dodge vehicles out of currently not available, so takes them out. That leaves us the Ford and the Chevrolet from John Weiss Ford and Dan Welly's. My recommendation would be to move forward with the 2015, get a model that's currently coming out or just has came out, and discuss where we may want to get that from.
See, honestly, I'm thinking we stay with the 2014, mainly because, as with anything, the minute you drive it off the lot, the value changes. 2015, we got more, and we budgeted $25,000. We okayed going 500 over our normal budget for staying local, and the 2014 Dodge Ram at Dan Welly falls right in that criteria. To go $3,000 more or whatever just to give it 2015, whether we sell box or parts off the other one, I don't know. I don't think we're doing the right thing.
So what's the difference between the 2014 Dodge and the 2015 Ford or Chevrolet as far as engine, everything comparable, relatively the same? Maybe, Dave, you want to come to the mic.
Yeah, specifically, I'd say you look at the 2014 Dodge and the 2015 Ford. The Chevy at 2015 is quite a bit more expensive again. I don't think we're going to go that route anyway.
To go from a 14 to a 15 vehicle, the difference we found is about a $1,200 difference. So but I do have the actual quotes and the specifications, and we tried to make them very similar, where we have well, I guess we did put the specifications on there at exactly what it is that we wanted the vehicle to be. They're all 3/4 ton vehicles. They all have the snowplow package, and the reason we want that is the extra alternator because we're going to be operating the hoist. They all have the trailer towing package. We tried to make them very similar, so we were comparing apples to apples. So there isn't any one thing that jumps out that makes them different from each other. Some have a 6.2 liter engine, some have a 6.0 liter engine, but that's what they offer. And so we can't really pick out one thing that really sets it apart that we would pay extra for that part. Dave, I don't know if you have something to add. I think we tried to cover everything, but.
Yeah. No, I really don't. And it don't matter to us which one we get. I mean.
So you're okay with the 14 Dodge versus any of the 15s is perfectly fine?
Yes, I mean, it's the history of all our, especially pickups and lighter trucks is you run them till they're dead anyway, so I guess one more year, a model year isn't going to make it last any longer.
If you don't care about the year and we can do the savings, then I'm all for it. That's fine, we'll go that route.
Well, I am too. I mean, it's it's really close to
Anybody have
budget.
any other thoughts?
Is that a Dodge cap you have on right now?
No, it's not.
It looks like a Ram on the top.
No, it's a Teamster hat.
I got one question. You're talking about selling the box to make up some of the difference. What?
We would put the original box back on the old Dodge, take that dump body, put on this new truck, and then sell the pickup box that comes with the new one, yes.
Right, yeah, you're going to sell the box off of the new truck. What's the relative value of selling a 2014 box versus a 2015?
Well, I don't think there's probably a lot difference on price. There'll be more 14s out there needing a box, which is
More
one thing.
demand for a 14
yes,
then.
because they've been there out already for a year, but the 15 changed model.
Hardly wrecked them yet, huh?
Yeah, and they're just, like this Chevrolet is just fresh from the factory within the last few weeks, but.
To make a motion.
Any other questions? Would you like to entertain a motion, Mike?
I'd like to make a motion that we purchase the 2014 Dodge Ram 250 from Dan Willey for $25,200.
Okay, we have a motion from Mike to approve resolution 2014-23, accepting quote and approving purchase of the 2014 Dodge Ram 2500 from Dan Welly Southtown for $25,200. Is that your motion?
It is.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion by Mike, seconded by Warren. Any further discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All in favor, none against. Okay, moving on. Approve resolution 2014-24, receiving petition for paving Center Street and ordering report. Vicki.
Yeah, on April 8th, we received a petition from the owners abutting Center Street. This would be from Beltline Road to 12th Street. So this is the road by Fleet that goes to the south and goes toward Midwest Machinery. We have a discussion on what should be done on Center Street has been debated for some time given the nature of the road with large equipment, commercial traffic, and also under discussion was whether the road necessitated the need for curbing or if a rural design roadway would be appropriate, which Beltline Road is in that area. Would that be adequate? This petition actually officially puts the project on the table for discussion. The next step would be to receive the petition and order the city engineer to come back with a feasibility report with cost estimates, and that at that time the city could elect to proceed with the project. Because this project was petitioned by 100% of the property owners, a public hearing is not required. However, it's suggested that all owners be invited to hear the presentation and to receive information on any potential assessment costs. So if we approve this resolution and direct the city engineer to come back with a cost estimate, I think we possibly should also ask him to come up with a cost estimate with curb or without curb, or so that he's prepared for when we come back to that next meeting. So when we receive this report and send it on its way, I think you should just give him that piece of maybe direction so we get back the information that you need.
I'm sure everybody's familiar with Center Street, going from Beltline and going south. And I think one of the, this is again, one of our gravel roads in our city that we've talked about taking care of and paving over the years. However, we all know that that street will need to be a much heavier street based on the businesses that abut it. Obviously, you got significant weight with heavy equipment into Midwest machinery, et cetera. So I think my recommendation, if we move this forward for ordering a feasibility report, and we certainly should do that, means we were petitioned 100% by the property owners, I think is a pretty fair reason to move it forward. The other thing would be is what type of a street would we be considering there, and furthermore, would we be requiring or requesting for curb and gutter along that, or would we do some type of a, I can't even use the right terminology for it, but swale, if that's the right word, along the north and south or east and west sides of the road. Yeah, ditch, swale. That would take care of the water runoff. And then, of course, is there storm water places for that water to go? And if it's in the ditch, there's going to be concerns about that. So I think maybe both curb and maybe not including curb would be my recommendation for a report to come back as far as costs go.
Either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does the council have any other thoughts? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve the resolution 2014-24, receiving petition and ordering the feasibility report?
So moved.
Motion by Warren, is there a second? Seconded by Mike? And Vicki, is that enough clarification?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Is this something that we'd be possibly could, not that the city wants to take on any more projects, that we kind of are going to do nothing this year really, but since the county's working on Beltline reconstruct, so that any way that we might get the timing down so we got that area done at the same time?
You know, that's a really good option, or a good idea, because they're actually in design right now for that roadway, and I can contact them and tell them that we got this petition, and maybe some way we can coordinate that, include this as part of that larger project and pay our share. That might be an option.
Because I'd rather, try to get that fast-tracked that way rather than tear that up for 2 rows and, 2 years in a row causes a lot of disturbance. So.
I think with the reconstructed Beltline too, I mean, the timing, as you said, is a great idea. The timing is to get it to them and let them know, but there may be some, the current road may have some issues about the access and entrance into there. It's kind of off of Center on the south side versus the north side when you come right to Beltline there. So there may be some slight shift one way or the other based on the reconstructed. So now would be the time to bring that to them to get that into their design.
Yeah, get that taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very good point. Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. All right, we're done with our action items. We're going to move into our unfinished business, Walnut Street Garage. Vicki?
The city, we previously discussed that it would consider the sale of Walnut, or the property at the intersection of 4th and Walnut, which is the Walnut Street Garage. Once it was no longer being used for staging for that street project that we were working on. That project is now reaching completion. We're not using it for staging anymore. And we were again approached by an individual that is interested in purchasing it, suggesting that we should revisit the idea of the sale. Currently, the building has some impound vehicles from the police department that are stored inside of it. We do have some options for sale. It could be a direct sale, it could be listing, it could be an online bid, an in-person auction, it could be a sealed bid. These are all options that we have. I know of at least 4 people that have contacted me in the last months with an interest in purchasing that property if the city were to sell it. That's interesting, this conversation is here tonight, that we're talking about the ambulance department, because at one time that was their home. So they've kind of come full circle on that one. But we need to decide for once, are we going to sell it or aren't we going to sell it? And because I think some people are feeling like we're letting them hang out there, because we do have high interest in that property.
Maybe the ambulance wants to move back in there.
They could.
You beat me to that comment.
Just a thought.
I think this brings up a good point, as Vicki stated. We were kind of holding on to selling that due to the 4th Street project for a staging area and whatnot. And I think now, obviously, with 4th Street done, it's time to move forward with what we want to do. I mean, I think we originally had already talked about selling it, so I think it's, unless this council feels differently today, but our action item at one point in time, I think, was even to move forward with the sale of that property. But is there any discussion or any wishes of this council that we would hold on to it, or is
Well,
everybody?
the only thing I wonder about is we've talked about selling it for many years, actually, and we keep finding uses for it.
Right.
So we're going to sell it, and next year we're going to say, darn, I wish we still had that thing.
True. I think the only, and that's a very good point, the one, I guess, difference where we're at today probably is we've added a lot of storage down at the street department, city garage, with the new storage shed and things that we've built down there. And that also has an addition to it that the fire department is kind of the lean-to area, so that which used to have stuff there that's now moved down to the city garage as well. I think the usage is getting minimal. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like we always got room stuff to store. But I guess, Vicki, do you have some thoughts about how you would move forward with whether it's, I don't know that we need to list it. You have so much interest in it. But are you thinking sealed bids? Are you thinking some type of a auction of some sort? Are you thinking online bidding? What do you?
I think a sealed bid or an auction, either way, is probably, we're going to see the best. There's some things that you need to talk about in there is to make sure people know where that property line is, and to make sure that, that maybe you want to reserve a easement across it for future stormwater from the backside. Other than that, I've seen it. One thing about online auctions is they keep a commission, but you may reach a bigger public. A sealed bid, may be more comfortable for people, but then sometimes you might leave money on the table. So that's a discussion for the council, which way you want to do it. I don't necessarily know that we need to list it and offer it for sale that way, because as much interest as we have already.
I'd almost think a sealed bid would probably be the best thing, along with the minimum reserve.
Have a reserve?
Because
Yeah,
otherwise
as long
you
as
could
there's a
turn around
reserve on
selling
it,
it
just
for
to make
$50,
sure,
Right. And obviously, I guess if we have, something comes up between now and then, we have the option to
always change our mind.
reject or decline all
Find
bids
other use.
at the very last minute. So that's certainly an option. But I think the sealed bid is what we've been pretty consistent with of how we've sold things in the past. Again, with that minimum on it. So if it's a general consent of the council, they can move forward with putting together documents to sell the facility or the property at Walnut Street Garage in a sealed bid with a minimum.
And I can put together all the information, and then you guys can finalize it at the next meeting.
Perfect.
As an action item.
Because then we'd have a valuation to actually
Correct.
go by to set the minimum on.
Correct.
All right. There is no action item on that. That was just for our discussion. Okay, moving on to new business. First thing on our new business, 9A, downtown flower baskets. Vicki?
Okay, we have, again, this year received a request for city assistance for watering the downtown flower baskets for 2014. This will be the 4th year, actually, that the hanging baskets have been put downtown, and we have received many positive comments as a result of that. The first and second year, volunteers did all the watering. The second year, the city allowed use of a tractor mower to pull a water trailer. The third year, which was 2013, the city Public Works watered during the week and volunteers on the weekend. Public Works used the gator during the week, and volunteers continued to use the tractor mower on the weekends. When the council authorized the 2013, it was said at that time it would be a trial basis and to see how it happened or how it worked out, and that's why they're before us for 2014. They have ordered the baskets for 2014. You do need to order those early in the year so that they can be planted and ready to go up. They are requesting that the city continue to water during the week as was done the prior year. The committee was prepared in 2013 to cover during the week if the city couldn't get to it in an emergency situation. However, we did not run into that where we couldn't get it done. I did speak with the Public Works Department. The watering during the week worked well with very few issues. It was generally done by seasonal staff prior to mowing, and if he wasn't working that day, one of the regular staff did the work. Time to water is between 1 and 2 hours, just depending on the day and the traffic. So what they're asking tonight is to approve watering of the baskets during the week by city staff, as we've done in the past. And Pam is here from the Beautification Committee to actually formally make that request, if she has something more to add to what or to accept any questions that you might have. Or if you have any from me first, that would be good too.
No, my only thought, Vicki, from an administrative perspective is you did reach out to the Public Works Department. It appears it went well. We had very few issues, as you noted. That was one of my concerns, is it being a trial year last year. Actually, we said it was only for 60 days, and if there was problems, bring it to us. It never got brought to us, so we continued on throughout the summer, if I remember correctly, which is good. I'm glad we're able to work with this group, and certainly I think those flowers bring a lot to our downtown. Question for you, Pam, is it the same amount of baskets and the same amount of that were this year as he did last year? Is it? Yes.
I mean, it goes from the mill to the library on both sides.
Okay. So we'll be looking at the same amount of time again this year. Dave, I know you kind of were part of that last year. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. And it's like Vicki said, it went well, and
Okay.
it's up to you guys if you want to spend time to do it.
All right. With that, do I have any questions of staff?
Well, I'm curious, about how much is it costing the city to do this? I mean, I get an hour or two, and depends on who does it. Roughly speaking, what are we talking?
I would say, if we were taking 13 weeks at an hour and a half, if the seasonal guy's doing it, we're looking $1,100. If one of our other staff does it, of course, it's going to be a little more. There's a little gas involved in using the gator to do the watering. So I guess if you do the gas, and maybe we're looking at maybe $1,500 cost.
Okay. Just a second, though. If we weren't doing it, who'd be buying the gas? Are we still providing the machinery?
We're providing the machinery for the gator during the week, and then we do provide the gas in the lawnmower on the weekend. So I guess the gas would go into
So I mean, we'd be buying gas anyway.
Just
right.
Our labor.
Yeah.
So.
And last year, I was one of them that wasn't very excited about the whole thing happening, because I didn't know if the city wanted to take on any more. But with everything going well, and we didn't see any huge budget issues and no complaints and whatever, I don't have a problem with it. I think we could keep going. With that, I'll even make the motion to approve the watering of the baskets during the week by the city staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A motion by Warren and seconded by Keith.
Yep.
That we move forward with watering of baskets during the week by city staff. Is there any discussion?
I will say I've talked and I've heard probably half and half. Some people say they don't think the city should spend the money, and some people are real happy with having the flowers out. So,
Yeah.
Where is that gator kept currently?
Walnut Street Garage.
Yep.
So we decided to keep that.
That is where the tractor is that they use on the weekends, but the gator's down at the shop.
All right. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. No other discussion. I'll call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you, Pam. All right, at this time, we have new business, the ambulance garage. Vicki.
I guess I'll start out with what I put in your packet, and then we have some follow-up information of different questions that have come up since we put it out in the packet. At its meeting on April 3rd, the Operations Committee was presented with a proposal by the Ambulance Department staff that it consider purchasing a building for the Ambulance Department. The department has been working out of the building with the Senior Center since 1994. At that time, they were put in the ambulance, put in that building. It was said that it would be for a 6-month 6-month period tops on a temporary basis. So at that time, at the time of the City Hall construction in 2004, it was again considered the ambulance moved to the new hall location. However, in the end, it was determined there wasn't sufficient space available to have them here. There was also talk of building a new garage directly west of City Hall. However, when the properties became available for the sale, the council at that time decided not to purchase. Subsequently, one house was sold and the other was remodeled. In the interim, the department has grown, the vehicles are larger, more supplies, new equipment continue to take up space. We also have some ventilation issues and some of those other kinds of things that, we haven't put a lot of money into that building. In 2013, the former ER building, or ER Auto building, located next to the American Inn, became available. Recently, ambulance staff toured the building to determine if it might work as a new location for the garage. The building has a total of 5,000 square feet. It's got a 3,500 square foot garage area, storage wash bay, and 1,500 square foot office and display area. The current garage is 2,500 square feet, which is the building, the garage, the offices, mechanical, et cetera. So you're looking about double the space. The property is currently owned by Central Minnesota Credit Union and is listed for $299,000. So we had several issues to be discussed, and some of you have had the opportunity to go in the building. I think some of the things the councils need to determine is, does the ambulance department need a new location? What are the deficiencies in the existing location? I did touch on some storage and ventilation, heating, electric, sleeping area, training, just space in general. This may require an addition to the existing building or remodeling. Our lot size up there kind of prevents it. In fact, the lot size, the side yard of the existing building, the driveway that we drive into the ambulance department, half of that is on the neighboring property that we have an easement for. We talked about, is there a future privatization of the ambulance service? Is that probable? And this has been considered in the past. However, councils have elected to maintain the service and have local control due to concerns that privatization would limit availability and increase response time, and keeping in mind that the department is self-supporting. We had some issues about the location where it's located on Timberland Point. Is that really the best place to have an ambulance department? And so I had the department look at where all their calls come from, and they really are, although they do a lot of responding to the freeway area, we do find that their calls are pretty split from that location. Now, currently they're on the north end of town. This would put them on the south end of town. Both have pros and cons. It depends on where your EMTs work, where your EMTs live, and where the calls are generated from. We had, would the ambulance department, would an ambulance service be a good neighbor to a motel? And we did talk about that and talked about the idea of maybe a policy would have to dictate no sirens until you clear past that area. We talked about traffic congestion. What about traffic congestion entering onto 12th Street? And we all recognize there's a lot of traffic. There's the Holiday Superstore. There's semi-traffic, et cetera. And we do realize that the Opticon then would activate when approaching that intersection, could clear that traffic quite quickly. Currently, there is no stoplight available to access the highway. We talked about the tax base. What happens to the tax base when you take it off of a tax-paying entity and taking it into public service? I would suggest perhaps a payment in lieu of taxes back to the city, general fund from the ambulance department, in an amount equal to the lost revenue that the city would receive. In the current year, the city portion of taxes from that property is about $2,300 a year. We talked about how would this be funded? What is an option for funding that? And it would be our suggestion that this be funded by ambulance department revenues. The department could, as a way of moving forward, could pay a portion up front from their existing fund balance, and then they would reimburse the general fund for the balance over a period of maybe 3 or 5 or 2 years, whichever. Well, there would be no tax dollar expended. They basically would be borrowing our reserves, paying it back, and we would actually have a formal promissory note with maybe a moderate interest amount to make the auditors and everybody, happy with that too. We talked about the added cost for utilities for a larger facility, and I did some checking with CenterPoint Energy, et cetera, and they're saying they were looking at $1,800 a year, but I realized that building was unoccupied this last year, so I would suggest that maybe we budget a little higher than that for added utility costs in comparison to the existing location. We talked about what would it cost to build that facility today, and we had estimates that were quite ranging. According to the building code, based on the type of the building, it came out at $539,000 to build that building. However, in talking to local builders that gave some estimates of per square footage, it may be closer to the $350 to $370 to build the building. Now, that's without the lot. The city actually sold that lot to that owner in 2004 for $90,000. We talked about if the city purchased it and later determined to privatize or locate elsewhere, would the city lose money on that building? And it was determined that it would be unlikely due to the cost of replacement. So if the city purchased that building now, we relocated the ambulance to an optimum location here by City Hall in 10 years, would we recoup any of the funds that we put into that building now? And like I said, they thought that because of the price of the building right now, that would be unlikely. We talked about what would happen with the existing facility. You know, we haven't made a decision on what might happen to that existing facility up there. There was talk the senior center might need a little more space. Would that facility be rented? You know, what would we do with that? And that's been undetermined at this time because, of course, the ambulance department is there right now, and so we hadn't really taken that into consideration. I know that some of you have been up there to see it. Some of us attempted to see it this evening, and we were unsuccessful. The city does have the option to close this meeting to the public if they want to discuss a price or to move forward. I know you have a lot of interest, as you can see in the audience tonight. And then we had some other emails of questions that we had of how we would go forward and what's the fund balance of the ambulance department and how could they make this happen. Currently, the ambulance has a fund balance of $328,000. They are proposing to purchase an ambulance later this year for the 2015, and the last ambulance was $158, so you have to take that off the balance there. So perhaps they pay a third, or there's some way we would fund that within the department without having to go out and bond or borrow or go to a bank. I mean, this is something that would be internally funded. We talked about what needs to be done to the building to make it to move in. What needs to be done? You know, we talk about it being move-in ready, but is it really move-in ready? I think there's some things that it could use, and we visited it, and we're just talking of things like paint and some of that stuff to keep it, to fix it up. The parking lot is gravel. You know, should that be paved? Yeah, there's a couple other small things that we talked about in the building, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to the council if you have any questions, and Kathy and Tim if they have any other information to add. It's a big decision. It's something that, of course, when things are listed, people will say it could be gone tomorrow, and I'm not trying to push that in any way, shape, or form. It's just that it's an opportunity to put our department into a facility. Is it the absolute best location? I guess that's up to you to decide that. But I'll turn it over to you if you have any more questions for me or for Kathy or Tim.
Vicki, I know I was one of them that sent you an email with lots of questions, and we were able to go down there on Monday evening, I believe it was, and take a look at it. I think Warren and I as well. So some of my questions got answered. Some of the questions I had at the time we were there, though, I think are important for us to talk about. And I think you have some of those numbers maybe with you. But I guess one of my questions is what is the total cost to actually make it move-in ready? I would like to know, was it $2,500 or is it $5,000 to do the painting, the flooring, all of the things that we discussed? I believe maybe you had done a little research on that. What is the cost to do asphalt or to make that, take care of the parking lot? That's another one of our costs. I understand and I think if the general consent of this council is that if we go down the road of acquiring this facility, we will then go into a closed session, give you an opportunity for some directive about maybe a range that we're considering for an acquisition, if that's the feelings of this council. Once we get through all of these questions, I believe it's important for us to understand the total cost for this acquisition and how we're going to pay for it before we get into closed session, so that we know whether or not that's the road we go. Do I think it's the best place for an ambulance garage? Absolutely not. I'll just tell you that right up front. Do I think it's the opportunity to do something because you've been in a facility for 20 years that was supposed to be 6 months, that's really not big enough for a rig and a half versus 3 and maybe 15 EMTs versus the full staff we got, absolutely, it's the right size, it's the right everything. So I and the rest of this council have to balance what's the right thing for the city. I'm torn between that, but I do believe we need to do something. So I think I support the opportunity of this as we go forward. What does that building today cost? Obviously, Vicki laid out the dollars. We know what they're asking. I've done a little bit of research. I'm hearing somewhere between $60 to $70 a square foot based on the building. So you do the math, that's $300,000 to build that if it's on the low side. It is a stick building. There's opportunities to add on if need be or to expand it because it's not obviously brick. Those costs to go forward are opportunities. Yes, I have concern about the location in regards to the hotels. I think there's protocol we can put in place that will alleviate some of that. The stoplight issue and the traffic. I've thought a lot about that. I drive that road every day, multiple times, as well as all of you do. I have some concerns, but I think if we set the protocol properly, and if we understand when we have control of the stoplight when you're coming to 12th Street on Timberlane. So keeping in mind you're driving north to 12th Street, you get to the stop sign, you hit your lights. That stoplight at Main and 12th is going to turn green because, right, you're on this east side of that light. So that's going to send all your traffic that's currently stopped in front of you, hopefully, on a green and continuing through if you're going west, okay, back to the light. I would assume 90% of your calls are going to take you back to that light and get you going whatever direction you got to go. One of the questions has always been about, I'll just back up a little bit. About 12 years ago when I was getting on the council, the reason I got on was because of this building right here. We built it here at the City Hall, and there was a lot of discussion about fire department and ambulance coming together and building here. Vicki laid out all the details as to why it hasn't happened. I'm not so sure that someday in the future we still can't get there. I do believe this is an optimum location right here for the ambulance. But I can't say when. Obviously, Vicki laid out some very good points about the houses and whether they're for sale and what's the cost to build onto this and all of those things. We have a building here that has an opportunity for us to acquire today that probably gives us an opportunity, if we were to build onto this in the future, to sell without having a significant loss to the city outside of the payment in lieu of taxes, right? That's what we lose, and I think we have an opportunity to recoup that through this acquisition as well, based on how Vicki talked about the funding side. So I'm kind of laying out my thoughts as I'm going through and trying to evaluate what's best long-term for the ambulance, what's best long-term for the city. As we know, response time is important. Every second saves lives. I think we know that from an ambulance department. I guess I was trying to sit down over the last couple of days determining, we have a lot of people that are responding to the ambulance garage now way up here on the north end. How does that change by moving out to the south end? You know what I mean? And where is that going to decrease our response time? I would guess it will. Our seconds to be in a rig is going to be less because it's probably closer, and I don't want to say probably because there's still a few people that live on the north end, and I get it, but in general speaking, I'll be interested to know how quick is our response time by a location there versus where we are up here on the north end. For many years, have seen the ambulance actually stop and pick up EMTs en route to a call because one or two people are at our garage already, and the third one is just maybe getting a few blocks away. So I'm interested in that discussion. The existing facility, well, I guess we got some opportunities with that. We certainly have a senior center that could expand. Is that the best place for a senior center as we continue to look at it? That's a whole nother discussion, but ultimately There will be property there that the city will own that was currently not going to be utilized if our ambulance is not in there. That's, I think, outside of where we're going with purchasing a building, except for the fact we'll have facilities there that we'll have to continue to heat and we'll have to continue to maintain to some degree, even with the fact that the ambulance is not in there. We don't just turn off the electric as an example. We got costs there. Those dollars got to be taken into consideration as well as we go forward. I think it's going to take some elbow grease. I'll just tell you that. There's obviously some work in there that needs to be done. If it's painting and flooring and those types of things, I would anticipate that we will do a lot of that internally, but there's definitely some of that. Move-in ready, I look at it as being move-in ready from a bay perspective, maybe not from a front office perspective. I think there's work that needs to be done up there. I'll just share that concern. I visited with Vicki on that as well. I think we'd all agree there's some work that needs to be done. I guess I'm supportive of looking at our opportunity down there on Timber Lane. I'm also open to the idea of if this is not where we go, and if this council feels it's not the plan or the timing to move that forward, then I think we need to continue the discussion on a ambulance facility of some sort, or building a facility or doing something, because I think it's been far too long of very constraints and opportunities for our ambulance to expand and grow. To be honest with you, it's almost a little embarrassing when we have training up there, when we have to bring in the general public just because of the facilities, and I'm not comfortable with that either. So I'm going to open up to the rest of the council for their comments. I think once we have additional comments and based on those discussions, we'll make a determination if we move forward to close this and go into a closed session to talk about price.
Basically, I'll start. Is this doable? Yeah, it's doable. Location, I'm not real excited about the location. Same with Brad. Basically, because if you look on the west side of the road, you know, there's a couple facilities over there that a lot of people go, why? You know, nothing wrong with the facilities, but Getty Street and River of Life Church are sitting over there. And a lot of people have always made the comment, what did they go there for? That's prime real estate for the city. Well, that was a private selling to someone else, so the city didn't have anything to do with it. But, so I don't want to fall into that same trap as, okay, we're going to take prime real estate and put an ambulance garage here. I definitely, one of the things I pointed out the night I visited and Kathy and Tim were there was I also didn't want to, it took the ambulance and the city a long time to get on that rotation for getting new ambulances. I don't want to hang that out to dry because we do this building. And yet, I think it's something that needs to be done. And I think that's one of the things we got to work out on the finance part, is that we don't give up renewing, getting new ambulances because of a new building. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of work in it. And one of the things we could say is, yeah, maybe in 10 years we do end up building something down here, but we also know just by what Vicki told us, you guys were told that 20 years ago that you wouldn't be in that building. So to come along and say now, 10 years you'll be in a new one and we'll sell that one, that might not happen either. So I think it's definitely worth a look at and proceed if we have to.
Any other comments?
Well, I'm not sure about the location issue. I mean, you don't think it's a good location. To me, it doesn't strike me as a bad location. It might be prime real estate, but so is the corner with the interpretive center, and there doesn't seem to be anybody trying to get to that, and this has been for sale for at least a year now, so it's not in demand. I don't know if it's prime real estate or not. As far as location, I hear you saying you think it should be downtown. I know that when I was on the ambulance city, we didn't want to be downtown. I mean, the fire department goes out 60 times a year. The ambulance is going to go out 60 times a month, entering into a busy downtown area. I think they're better off not being downtown. That's a lot of emergency traffic coming in and out of here. It's best if they're not in the most densely populated area that we have. So from that point of view, that's not bad. A little work to do down there. My guess is that it's at least as good as what they're in right now. So move-in ready? Oh, absolutely. Improvements to be made? Sure, but you know, at least there's a place to improve.
I think it's kind of an optimum location, actually, because if you're going west of town, you can shoot across Sinclair or Main Street and be at Mach 5 before you get to Fleet.
No, we don't go to Mach 5.
If you're going east of town, the same thing. A lot of our calls are generated on the interstate or south of the interstate. There's same issue there as well. So, and it just seems like it would be you got a nice big bare lot there to pull into, turn around, get out. I guess I would like to know the figures for making it a congregation place for teaching or what, their education area, how much that's going to cost us.
We did talk about, so those of you that were able to get in it, and like Brad said, the back area is pretty much ready to go, except maybe some bolts in the floor where there were lifts that need to be removed. The front area, it needs a fresh coat of paint. The carpet needs to be cleaned or replaced. They would be, they're looking at kind of a lounge area, and they have a sleeping room, and some of those things that need to be done, and then to have a nice area for the public to come in for, not only for any teaching area or classes, but also a nice meeting area for them during their annual meetings and in their training and everything. And so, you're going to buy some paint, you're going to buy some carpet, you might need to get a little bit of furniture, and we did some estimates on that, as well as asphalt on the parking lot area, or at least the entrance out onto Timber Lane. We've dealt a lot with erosion coming down onto the road. And so we did kind of some preliminary estimates depending on, what kind of furniture they're looking at and what kind of carpet they would be looking at. But interior, we could maybe spend about $12,000, and exterior, we could maybe spend about $12,000 like on carpet. So I would say that you want to keep in mind that maybe the ambulance department now would spend maybe $25,000, and then that place would be more like a showroom for them to let the public come in to see, and also for them to have a comfortable place. Because there's a lot of them that stay there when they're on call. They're there in that facility.
I was going to ask too, do we currently have a sleeping room at the?
We have a couch.
That's what I thought, a couch. So it would be and for coverage, it probably would be nice to have some area where they.
Right, and so, to move into that building, I think it needs to be, we can do it on a shoestring, or we can do it right.
Thank you.
I will take a little exception. You talk about furniture inside, and I guess I'd say if the furniture that's at the garage right now is not suitable for moving, then we need furniture up there too, so furniture is furniture one way or the other. If it's good enough when they stay, I guess it's good enough if they move.
Well, it's, right.
I mean,
it might be something.
I hate to say we can't move there because there's $12,000 worth of
I guess
furniture.
maybe what I was talking about mostly there was, there's room for additional furniture, more tables for training and that type of thing, rather than what you have. But you're right, Kathy's couch can move. I think that has a special place in her heart, so we probably will have to take it.
I think it's in the low back.
All right. I would like, Mike.
Yeah, I have a couple things. For me, it's not what's available, it's what's best. I think that we get excited about a particular building, but really, for me, the third point that you bring up about past councils have elected to maintain the service and that the local control, private, has never really, it's been trust us, we know, and I really have not liked that. I have wanted to have a discussion about the ambulance service, and I am not necessarily pro-privatization, But it's been frustrating in my time on the council that they haven't had a discussion about what the value is, what the purpose and form actually is of the ambulance service. People say, well, yeah, you turn the lights on, you go pick people up, and you bring them back. That's the form. Well, I think it's more than that. And if we're going to start to talk about $300,000 investment, I think it behooves us to really sit back and say, okay, when the ambulance service has started and where it is right now, healthcare has changed drastically. There's been a lot of things that have affected that. Our demographics in our community has changed. It seems to me that we really need to set what the value is. How does it compare? I get a real feeling that, we don't want to talk about privatization for fear that it might be better to be privatized. And again, I'm not advocating it, but if there's a real value in the service, let's articulate that value and what we're trying to do. So if future councils come in and say we don't like it, well, here's why we do it. And it's really measurable. It really tells us why it is. Self-supporting, great, but I'm not necessarily caring if it's self-supporting. If it's doing a function that's important to this community, then we fund it. Obviously, if self-funding is a good thing, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be, but really the idea that form follows function. And I think that I have similar concerns about that particular building over there. I can see why they would want to move, given where they're at, going there. Yes, is there a need? Yes. But I really think we all need to step back a few paces from this and say, what is the ambulance service supposed to do? What specific things do we want to see it do? So instead of, we get these reports about, well, we picked up 11 people here and 13 said no. It's data to have, but I would rather have more data that says what we're working towards or what we're trying to accomplish. So for me, this third issue has not been answered, and I would be hesitant to support anything until that discussion happens. So I know that $300,000 is a good price to support in there. Well, if somebody says, well, what, $300,000? Why'd you spend that? Because we're doing this, this, and this.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and we did have some conversations about that, and I realize since you've been on the council, that has not been an agenda item to talk about. When we did talk about this was when we started talking about putting these ambulances on that 3-year rotation that Warren referred to earlier, and we looked at what some of the other communities that did privatize or went with Gold Cross or up north with North Memorial, and how do they handle their services. And at that time it was, well, if Gold Cross or somebody came in here and we privatized the service, what would it look like? It certainly wouldn't look like 3 ambulances and 20 EMTs stationed in your community. It would look like 1 ambulance hanging out somewhere near Melrose.
But wait a minute.
And so they didn't want to go there. They didn't want to go there. They wanted to keep the response time down, and it was all about response time at that time.
Okay,
and this is how we keep response time down, because based on what the other communities saw, the council at that time felt it was important to keep the response time down, and that was what they hung their hat on when they went into the 3-year ambulance rotation. And so that's kind of the same type of backup. And I know Tim and Kathy were here at the time when we went through that exercise, and maybe they have some additional information to provide you, but that really was how the council made the decision to stay with the service and to do the ambulance on rotation. And I don't believe that has changed. Perhaps it has, but maybe the people that are professionals in that field can answer that more than I can.
And then that's my point. I mean, people say, well, I don't think it's changed. Well, I really haven't seen us really look at this in an analytical way and have some sort of report about what's going on with it. It's assumptions. It's, well, this sort of did and it hasn't changed. Don't worry about it. A lot of that's going on. I know that communities recently have started to relook at their ambulance services. I forwarded a copy of a recent news article to you about that. I want to have that discussion, and I want us to take our time at that discussion, not simply platitudes and assumptions that go out there, because I think things have changed. And I want to invest in the ambulance service the amount that it needs, because maybe this $300,000 isn't enough. I don't know. I really think that, what are the aspects of that? Think outside the box. What is the perfect thing that you want? Well, let's look at that, and is that right for this community? I think going and just saying, here's a great building, let's get in, it's better than where we're at, is not the way to go. We need to be looking 10 years, 15 years down the road, not, I want to get out of this crappy building we're in and into a nicer one. I don't think that's a good policy decision.
Okay. We obviously have some opinions. Good way to put that, I guess. And I think it's, Mike, and I'm going to just kind of I want to go back to your comment, because I think it is a very valid comment about the longevity and the planning, and certainly not only that is understanding. You have brought points up to us about the ambulance more than once, and we've had these discussions about how do we feel the future of the ambulance being, whether it's privately owned or continues to be city-owned, and where do we feel going forward, and how are we going to go forward at those discussions. I guess I'm just going to tell you, in my opinion, based in my experience, and I'm only one of the four here, the situation we got is we have, there's certain council members that feel that we have and it ain't about do we have a good or do we have a bad ambulance. We have a great ambulance, no question about it. It's more like, where is the future going with the ambulance, and how have we done our due diligence to make the determination that we should continue on the path that we are. Those are very tough questions, because of the fact that everybody has a difference of an opinion about how that is. You know what I mean? You're very strong about, I want more information about, is this the road going forward? I can tell you I'm very strong that says, I think keeping it private, doing our due diligence, doing some of the past discussions that we've had about, and I say keeping it private, keeping it city government owned, keeping it as is and functionable is important to me. Having a local ambulance in Sauk Center is very important to me, and I think it's important to the community. And so I'm strongly, basically in opposition to what you're saying about should we do our due diligence and see should we maintain it or not. I'm not opposed to the due diligence, but I think that personally is a waste of time and wasted money. I would move forward with doing a building based on the knowledge that we have presented, not only on the building here, but all of the years of a very well-ran ambulance department, and understanding that there's significant need in our community, in my opinion. Now we have, again, we have 5 people up here, and that's why we're here. If the support is to not move forward right now, that's okay. We'll move forward down the road. But if the support is the general majority of this council feels we're at where we want to be, and it's more about should we just expand upon what we got, then that's what this council needs to make a decision on. Basically, you got to get support along with you, as well as with, if I'm on the other side that says, let's get this going. So I think we want to make sure we're okay. You know, we're going to have a difference of opinions about where we're going.
But I think maybe you mischaracterize my position. In the sense that I don't believe a discussion about the ambulance service and its goals is all that complicated, or expensive, or time-consuming. I mean, it is to say, we all agree we are going to sit down and we're going to have a discussion about the ambulance service, and we're going to talk about and try to make that decision based on some concrete facts in regards to response times. If we brought in other ambulance services, what would they say? How would they, to really look at that. And I don't, again, it's not, I'm not pro-privatization, I'm not pro or against the ambulance or anything like that. I just want to make sure that when we make that decision, we are making it based on what the facts are on the ground, as opposed to, well, we just want it local. I appreciate that, but I also, as you are, elected to spend the taxpayers' money, and I want to say, this is the best way to spend your money. And to do that, we put a high value on localization, or we put a high value on response time, or whatever the criteria is. So what is a good ambulance? Give me 5 criteria. Let's set that and see how it compares to private versus public, and make a decision based on that and what we want to see accomplished. But, to say what side I'm on the side of making sure that when we make a policy decision, it's based on what the facts are.
I would say I am as well. Is there any other comments?
I guess I would just say if you spend a lengthy time in setting goals that you hope someone attains, by the time they do get to be approved for them to attain it, it'll change.
Well, then I say
it'll change. Healthcare doesn't even know where it's going right now.
if I might respond, I think what we're talking about is to say they may set those goals. You know, they know how to run. I'm not going to say we're going to tell them how to run an ambulance service, but a lot of that information comes to them. You know, what makes a good ambulance service? Give us, you know, there has to be a metrics out there in regards to what a high-performing ambulance service is going to be. So you can come up. They don't have to be.
Well, I think this would be one indicator of that.
Possibly, and we can sit down and have that discussion. But let's have a discussion about what is going to, and then how can you tell me that it is, right? I mean, it's like we get these reports of numbers of recalls of how many issues or how many verbal warnings we've given on from our police. That's all good, but what does that mean? Is that good or is that bad? I don't know. We told 295 people to slow down. Okay, good, but so did they? I mean, and so when we look at the ambulance service, it's like, well, where are we at? Do we have a good one? How? And they need to know that too in regards to what's success and what's not. And maybe it's overperforming, and we got to catch up with these people because we really got a good crowd. Or maybe there's an area of, here's what's important to us, and we want you to work on it. That's all what I'm talking about, and it is not a complicated process. But once we establish that, then people can get behind it and say, yeah, those are important. We want you to spend that money. That's what I'm getting at. But if I'm going to spend $300,000 on a building because it's better than the one before, I can't support that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Basically, just to give you some history, since I lived in town all my life, the ambulance service used to be privatized years ago. It was run by a private person, and I actually, along with 3 of my friends, after seeing someone wait for an ambulance for 20-some minutes, actually started the petition to get the city to take it over and get that guy that had it out of there, because I didn't like seeing someone die in front of me. The ambulance part is one of them services that's not appreciated until someone needs it. And we've developed it over the years to what we got. And it isn't a building, it isn't $300,000, it's whether or not we appreciate what we got and whether we, as a council, think the community deserves it. That's the reason why I think we need to look at it. Maybe we do need to look at different options occasionally, just to shake things up, which I think is what Mike is pointing at, to get a better grasp at it. But still, we've come a long way from when it was a one-person show and a privatization where wait times lasted forever. So with that, I think we got to look at this.
But just one point, you completely missed what I was talking about.
Okay, fine.
So, I mean, that's not what I was talking about.
Dave, do you have any additional questions?
Well, there's a lot of talk about goals. They know the ambulance, objectives and things, and they know the ambulance has many of those. They have a goal for response time. They have a goal for on-scene time. They have a goal for transport times. They're all recorded, and it's all in the MinStar database, and if you want to know how you stack up about the other ambulance services, their data is all in there too. I know we stack up very well. This ambulance service has been shopped around for privatization. It was shopped around at the time this building was being built. Mm-hmm. No interest except to take our new ambulances to another city and give us their old stuff. I mean, that's That's privatization. There isn't enough business here for any private ambulance service to want to move in. We may get to that point, but it's a lot of years down the road. On the other hand, we are very close to the point of needing a full-time staff during the day. And if you have full-time staff, they have to have a place to stay. And they don't have that right now. And response time to an ambulance garage with full-time staff really doesn't matter because they're already there. You know, it's more a matter of getting them from there to wherever they're going. And near the freeway is promising for that reason.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody have any other comments? Hearing no other comments and hearing the general consent of this council is that they would like us to move forward. I would entertain a motion that we go into a closed session to discuss the potential acquisition of the building on Timber Lane Drive.
And I will make that motion.
We have a motion by Dave to go into closed session to discuss a potential acquisition.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Dave and seconded by Warren. Is there any discussion?
Can I add something?
Yes.
Now, closed session means those of you and us. Would you like to retain the ambulance director and assistant director in that discussion?
I think staff would be appropriate.
Okay.
Ones that are remaining.
Anyway.
They're going anyway.
All right, we have a motion and a second that we go into a closed session to discuss the potential acquisition of the facility on Timber Lane Drive as presented. I'll call that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. 4 in favor, 1 against. With that, we will clear the room with the exception of Kathy and Tim, and we'll go into a closed session.
Shut the mics and the video off, right?
We do need to record this, though, I think. For legal reasons, we need to record it, right?
Yeah, but I'll record it with the
You have another
audio.
recorder?
Wednesday's floods, Thursday's tornadoes, Friday's heat. So obviously, it's hard to get everybody engaged in all of those discussions, but we will be having some training during that period of time. With that, is there anything else for our meeting this evening? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.